Good evening, everyone. It is the 11th and it's Monday, which means we all survived, hopefully. So, good evening, Jason J. Eris, thank you for doing all the Modly stuff. Phoenix, good evening. Uh, you know, we survived. Fry is exhausted from his new treat. Can't win for losing on that one. Our first story is New York City burns pizzerias with new rule cutting smoky pollutants by 75%. Quote, you're going after pizza? End quote. Fry's gotten to run outside with the boys more now that we have the kind of longer lead outside. So I think he's worn out. I have no idea. He's a weirdo. I can't explain him sometimes. New York City has hello, JKD Buck. New York City has quietly approved a controversial green plan to require pizzerias and matzo bakeries using decades old wood and coal fired stoves to cut their smoky pollutants by 75%. Really? New York City? This is the crisis that you want to deal with right now? Okay. Mayor Eric Adams' Department of Environmental Protection said that the fresh edict takes effect April 27th, with some of the city's businesses having already coughed up more than $600,000 for new smoke eating systems in anticipation of the expected mandate. Yes, I do. I'll need to put little pants on him though. Let's see. Quote, "You're going after pizza. Glorious New York pizza," groused Mike DeBan in a recent online comment to New York City Department of Environmental Protection. You can't go after diesel trucks instead of pizza ovens. Businesses using wood and anthracite stoves can apply for a variance, but need evidence to prove they are unable to comply with the mandate. Pizza lovers and some entrepreneurs went bonkers when the Post first reported the proposed rule last summer, worried the dough needed to comply with the measure uh, would put some beloved spots out of business or at least affect the taste of their tomato and mozzarella slices. But Adams has defended the mandate for the Big Apple, which was recently named the most expensive city to get a slice of pizza in the country. Hello, cool gamer. Let's see. The scientific evidence is clear that reducing emissions of fine particulate matter will improve the health of New Yorkers and reduce hospital visits and costs without changing the amazing taste of NYC pizza. Department of Environmental Protection Representative Edward Timbers insisted in an emailed statement to the Post on Sunday. About 130 Big Apple businesses will be affected by the new rule, the city said. The Department of Environmental Protection received 155 online comments about the plan before it was approved, with most opposing it. Hello, Stacey Ann and Slidey Pie and Lefty. This is an egregious overstep of the state and local government and puts unreasonable burden on small businesses that have already endured tremendous hardships over the last 3 years, said Mark Hellman. If the government wants to improve air quality and forces businesses to do it, it should provide the equipment free of charge rather than putting the burden on the businesses themselves. This simply isn't a priority in a city that's desperate need of numerous improvement, Hellman wrote. Joanne Barnes added, please grandfather old coal oven institutions without requiring them to install scrubbers. This rule is a joke. Barron said, don't punish small business and pizza lovers. Some pie flippers who make pizza using traditional baking method have said they've already eaten the extra cost and implemented the required new air filtration systems known as a flue exhaust to abide with the upcoming edict. Grimaldi's Pizza, which has coal brick restaurants in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, has or is in the process of installing smoke eating systems at all three locations, says co owner Anthony Fiskina. It's costing Grimaldi's at Limelight in Manhattan $50,000 to install the filtration system because of added costs to protect the integrity of the historic Gothic structure that was once a church before becoming a nightclub. Gotta love that it was a church, then it became a nightclub, now it's a pizza joint. We have to do it. We can't cook pizza any other way, the co-owner said. He said the ovens have to reach a temperature of 1,200 degrees to properly cook the slice, and only coal fire ovens do that. Popular Polly G's Pizza in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which uses wood fire ovens, installed the smoke reduction emissions exhaust system before the COOF pandemic hit, when the proposed rule was first discussed, then postponed. It's a big deal. I did what I needed to do. It's better than closing, said Polly G's owner, Polly Giannoni, celebrating his 14th year in business. It cost him $2,000 to comply, or $20,000 to comply. This is so ridiculous. Again, of all of the issues in New York, it's the pizzas that y'all should. Okie dokie. Alrighty. Um, I hope no one's getting ready to go on a flight. At least 50 injured, one critically after plane nosedived, sending bloodied passengers crashing into the ceiling. I'm hoping that it was turbulence or something. Let's see. At least 50 passengers were injured when a packed Boeing jet suddenly nosedived Monday, sending flyers crashing into the ceiling, leaving bloodstains above their seats. Oh, I know, it's really good. I don't understand why New York is so against anything good. LATAM Airlines flight LA 800 from Sydney, Australia was about an hour from its destination of Auckland, New Zealand, when, quote, all of the sudden the plane just dropped from the sky. Passenger Brian Jockett told New Zealand news outlet Stuff. Jocat said he woke from a nap to a shocking sight of his neighboring passenger on the ceiling. His back is on the ceiling, he's up in the air, then he drops down, hits his head on the armrest. The whole plane is screaming. The plane is then starting to take a nosedive, and I'm thinking, "Okay, this is it, we're done." Even the pilot was left in quote unquote "shock," Jacquot said, saying he told him, "My gauges just blanked out. I lost all ability to fly the plane." I'm loving that this is, you know, are they trying to what's going on here? Another passenger described how many were not wearing seatbelts and flew through the cabin. Blood was on the ceiling. People flew and broke the ceiling of the plane. The passenger, only identified as Valentina, told CNN affiliate RNZ. Video posted online from the tumultuous flight also showed one person lying unconscious in the middle of an aisle as others held their head in apparent shock and pain. The plane, which can hold about 280 passengers, appeared to be mostly full. Are you sleep eating, you dingus? He's sleep eating. I can't with you right now, Frybert. Once the Boeing 787-9 Dreamlander landed safely in Auckland, emergency crews treated 50 people on board. Excuse me. Uh, local Local ambulance company, Hatto Hone St. John, said in a statement to Australia's ABC News. 12 were transported to a local hospital with one person in serious condition, the ambulance service said. Well, probably Squab Bob. In a statement, Chile-based LATAM Airlines confirmed that the flight had a technical event that caused a strong movement. I love how they pretty these things up. Me doing a jumping jack would be a strong movement. A plane nosediving is what we call effing terrifying. That's a negative, Knight Rider. A spokesperson for the airline also noted that the flight, quote, landed at Auckland Airport as scheduled. As a result of the incident, some passengers and cabin crew were affected, the spokesperson said in a statement to New Zealand Herald. They received immediate assistance and were evaluated and treated by medical staff at the airport as needed. Oh, okay, he's awake. Well, at least he's awake. Thank you, Eris. LATAM Airlines regretted the quote inconvenience and injury this situation may have caused its passengers and reiterated it's committed to safety as a priority within the framework of its operational standards. Well, that that is really reassuring. As long as it's within operational standards, they'll be safe-ish. Yes, I see you. Oh, this is already gross. It's all covered in slime. Ugh. Passengers were given overnight accommodations, according to Stuff. A replacement flight to Santiago, Chile was scheduled for Tuesday evening. Yeah, I don't know that I'd want to go with the same airline. ABC News reports LATAM Airlines was making a trip from Sydney to Chile with a stopover in New Zealand at the time of the technical problem. Well, it's a good thing they were close to effing New Zealand. Had they been on the, New Zealand to Chile part, they'd have been kinda screwed, don't you think? The terrifying flight was the latest drama for Boeing, which has faced numerous inspections and government investigations already this year. Doggone it, Frybert. You're trying to you're tr let's see, because Boeing's had a little bit of, technical malfunctiony stuff going on with their airplanes. That's the question. Therein lies the rub. The definition of, you know, safe within operational parameters can mean so many things. In we How shocked are we not? People in East Palestine were told their homes were clear of toxins last year. That may not have been the case. In Godoy, but I guess CNN is shocked by this. When government officials lifted an evacuation order for the people who lived near the site of the train derailment and toxic spill in East Palestine, Ohio last year, many homes held on to a strong odor. It was a sickly sweet smell that evoked comparisons to paint thinner, but fruitier or maybe potpourri mixed with old perfume. To reassure residents, the train's operator, Norfolk Southern, and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency offered to check the air in the homes for chemicals. More than 600 households signed up. What they didn't know was that the handheld devices used for the screening couldn't detect one of the main chemicals spilled from the train. My shock. Why am I not shocked? Butyl acrylate at a level that could irritate the eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. Oh, then you're going to have a field day. Case studies of people exposed to butyl acrylate in previous spills have raised questions about whether brief exposures may lead to longer term health problems. I would say this is one of the most significant errors associated with the response, said Dr. Andrew Welton, an environmental engineer at Purdue University, who has done independent testing in East Palestine. It's because of this so many people were chemically exposed when they returned. Although the EPA and Norfolk Southern contractor CTEH understood the limitations of the machines, they carried on with the home testing, according to an air testing plan drawn up by CTEH. Well, as long as we're letting The company who effed up, write up the plan to say what's safe. Are you flipping? Why am I asking? I am never shocked. This is oh my gosh. They relied on smell to pick up the presence of butyl acrylate at lower levels, although residents weren't told that odors could indicate chemical exposure, according to an EPA official who answered questions on behalf of the agency on the condition that they would not be named. By the time the EPA adopted a more sensitive test and lower standard for butyl acrylate, the home test screening was nearly complete. People who had had their homes checked weren't told about the subsequent adjustments to the air testing program and why they were made, according to CTEH and the EPA. Evil. Put them all in prison. This is so gross. They were never offered more indoor air testing. Quote, "I had no idea," said David Chick, who lives about a quarter of a mile from where the train wrecked and caught fire. Chick thinks that few people in the village are aware of what happened, and the confusing messages from the EPA have probably fueled division and distrust in the community. Again, how I can't imagine why they would think that they were distrustful. You let the a-holes who wrecked the damned train write the safety protocols. Quote, "The dynamic around town would be completely different if even 60 or 70% of the people knew that," he said. "One hell of an irritant. Butyl acrylate was one of the stew of toxic chemicals released into the soil, air, and local waterways after Suffolk Northern train flew off its rack and caught fire on February 3rd, 2023, damaging at least 11 cars carrying hazardous materials, according to the EPA. Well, now I don't trust you with anything that you say, EPA, so I'm going to say 100 gajillion. Two of the cars that derailed had been holding nearly 386,000 pounds of acrylates, strong smelling, highly irritating chemicals that are used to make paintings, coatings, caulks, and sealants. And that's the reason I can't go to Lowe's anymore because I giggle like an absolute school kid when I say that word. Well, that and I say it every time so I don't have to go to Lowe's because Lowe's is boring. Especially if I'm not allowed to buy, like, all the Christmas stuff. Let's see here. Many people know the olfactory assault from acrylates from nail salons since some types of nail polish and nail products use them. Uh, 2 acrylates were spilled in East Palestine, excuse me. Butyl acrylate and ethahexyl acrylate surface water testing by, Idaho or no, Ohio EPA found sky-high levels of acrylates in local creeks in the first few days after derailment. Those levels tapered off and are now undetectable based on recent testing, but the chemicals are still detectable in Sulphur Run through but the chemicals were still detectable in Sulphur Run through March 2023. It's not clear how much butyl acrylate people were exposed to or for how long. Environmental health experts note that because of a number of factors, including age and underlying health condition, there are a wide range of individual sensitivities to chemicals. In other words, different people will react to chemicals at different levels. The EPA says ongoing testing shows that people are not currently being exposed to chemicals from the derailment in their homes. Independent air testing conducted in September by the University of Kentucky and Wayne State University backs that up. In 15 buildings where air monitors showed consistently high levels of volatile compounds, researchers hung sensitive air sampling badges, which used charcoal to absorb chemicals from air to find out exactly what was causing the readings to be so high. Some homes had higher than expected levels of chemicals that can be found in vehicle exhaust or in solvents used in dry cleaning. In 3 buildings, researchers detected traces of butyl acrylate. The levels were so low, however, that researchers said it could not be confident in the numbers. They also noted that butyl acrylate is in lots of common products like paint and other things. Because butyl acrylate is unstable in or acrylate is unstable in the environment, they say it's highly unlikely that what they measured is from the derailment. Let's see here. That doesn't mean people in East Palestine were never exposed to the acrylites, said Dr. Aaron Hayes, chair of the Department of Epidemiology and Environmental Health at the University of Kentucky, who led the study. In the first few weeks after the spill, more than 90% of the 702 people in the area who answered a government health survey reported having headaches, and more than 70% reported coughing and burning eyes. Stuffy nose, dizziness, breathlessness were also common, as were new and worsening mental health problems. Well, maybe because you think your government has abandoned you. That could also be it. And then your government lying to you and telling you your houses were okay to go back to when they weren't. That kind of screwed my mental health too. Let's see here. Health officials said the symptoms reported in the survey are consistent with the known health effects of the chemicals that were on the train. So, but y'all, this is going to make me want to get some people get very irritated. Butyl acrylate is one hell of a irritant in my limited experience with it. Dr. Alan DeCatman, a former professional professor of occupational and environmental medicine at West Virginia University School of Public Health and former director of environmental medical service at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Thank you, Deborah. Uh, DeCatman treated people who were exposed to butyl acrylate after a tanker truck carrying nearly 45,000 pounds of the chemical collided with a logging truck in Bristol, West Virginia in 1998. Both vehicles exploded on impact. Uh, Sorry, I Wild Feral came in for reasons I can't explain. Uh, Both vehicles exploded on impact. Their drivers passed away. The wreck shut down a 4-lane highway and forced the evacuation of people living a half a mile around the site, according to news reports and interviews with residents who remember the incident. Nearly 2 dozen people were known to have been treated for chemical exposure related to the spill. 6 were hospitalized. In 2012, Ducatman co-authored a case report on 3 people who had lasting problems from their exposures. Outside of East Palestine, Ducatman believes this small study is the only documented exposure of health effects after an environmental spill of butyl acrylate in the US. Quote, they aren't getting better as quick as their doctors told them they should, so they came to us, he said. In one case, a college student who got stuck behind the wreck in her car and sat in the fumes for about a half an hour came to Dukatman 2 weeks after the accident with a swollen face and persistent cough, despite being prescribed steroids during a previous visit to the emergency room. Let's see. It was the most hacking, dry, unpleasant cough. It was a racking cough, Ducatman said, adding he and his fellow physicians could tell when they were getting someone else who had been exposed to butyl acrylate. We'd say, okay, there's another one, because you could hear them coming down the hall. Another patient in the case report was a landfill worker who had handled contaminated dirt from the accident site over several days. He was diagnosed with chronic bronchitis. Am I still muted? I thought I let's see. The third patient was a first responder who helped evacuate residents around the accident site. Exposure to acrylite had sensitized his airways, so they became easily irritated. He began having asthma attacks. 7 months after the accident, in addition to breathing problems, he complained of muscle pain, weakness, and brain fog. 10 years after the accident, he is still taking medication for asthma he did not have before the spill. Most people exposed to the chemical in West Virginia got better over time, DeCottman said. But for at least one of these patients, it was a life-changing event. In East Palestine, technicians from the the company that, ran the trains and the EPA came into the houses with handheld devices that measured the level of broad classes of chemicals called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Butyl acrylate is a VOC. Even as a home screening got underway, the EPA reached out to scientists at the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, or ATSDR, part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, for help to establish what the agency calls minimal risk levels for butyl acrylate, according to an EPA official. Minimum risk levels are the amount of a chemical a person could breathe, eat, or drink in a day without experiencing health effects besides cancer. Risk levels for chemicals known to cause cancer are generally even lower. Health officials say there's not enough research on butyl acrylate to know whether it is a carcinogen. Wonderful. In some cases, the ATSDR has a set minimal risk level for chemicals. There aren't any for butyl acrylate, according to the EPA, so experts at the agency uh, set to work creating them. These levels were based on an exhaustive review of relevant scientific literature and subject matter in expert input. Interesting. I thought that there were no real studies about what, the safety and for humans were. With residents eager to return to their homes, the ATSDR's experts had to work quickly. On February 7th, they proposed a 2-week action level for butyl acrylate of 3,300 parts per million. The evacuation order was lifted on February 8th, and the testing of homes got underway later that evening. Wait a minute. You didn't test some homes before? For the love of all that is. On February 9th, after further study, the ATSDR revised that number, advising that the 2-week action level should be 66 times lower at 50 parts per billion, according to an EPA official. Parts per billion is way scientists express the concentration of chemicals in air or water. It's a tiny amount. Using Earth's population as an example, a single part per billion would be 8 people on the entire planet. So, yeah, the fact that they had 3,000, I don't like these people. The ATSDR scientists were concerned because butyl acrylite's sensitizer effects According to the EPA official, sensitizers prime the body so future exposure to even small amounts may provoke an allergic reaction on the skin or respiratory tract. Again, you guys really knew this before you even started this crap. After discussion with the EPA and the damned train company, the 50 parts per billion level was rejected because the machines being used to do the screening couldn't detect the chemical until it reached a concentration of 160 parts per billion in the air, according to background on the decision in air testing plan written by the damn train company. After noticing the descriptions or discrepancies between the handheld detectors and other types of air testing used in East Palestine, the EPA studied the devices over the summer. The testing confirmed that the machines couldn't reliably pick up butyl acrylate at the 20 parts per billion or and 50 parts per billion proposed by the ST or the daggone thing. Thank you so much, Wolfram, and let me get those written out and I will hang them up when I take Fry out for his last walk tonight. And those went to Stacey Ann, Squid Pro Quo, John, Coleman, and Jude Curio, and Dennis Heaton. Thank you so much, Wolfram. All right. So, we sent them machines that lie to them. I cannot. In most cases, testing did not detect any VOCs above 100 parts per billion. This is just so gross and so shady. Oh, y ugh, it's so slobbery. Ooh. Ugh. Let's see here. According to the EPA, if the machines measured any VOCs above that, the homeowners were advised to ventilate their homes by opening windows. Thank you, John. And those went to, let's see, Zach, Squabob, Spirit Matter, and Hey Joe and Rossman Ranch. Why are my boys so loud? I don't think they had an inside voice when they were handing them out. I think that line was full. One second, I am finishing this. No, I said I'm finishing this. Fry's like, "That is just mean, mom. Never has time for me." She Okay. Let's move on to trying to move on. Lonnie Miller signed up for the indoor air screening for her cherished tan and brown home on East Clark Street in East Palestine, the one that has her son's baby footprints on the concrete they poured to build the garage. The home sits about 200 feet from Norfolk Southern's train tracks. Sulphur Run is also nearby. Within hours of the derailment, Miller says she and her husband began smelling chemicals. They discussed what to do and decided to leave. They returned on February 21st, 2023, well after the state and federal officials said it was safe to return. The Millers were told that the indoor air testing found nothing of concern. Quote, they stated levels were all identical, just like everyone else's readings, coming back low, end quote, said Miller. Despite this, she says her face broke out in a rash after she returned home in February 2023. She says her nose still burns when she's in there for more than a few hours. Miller said she had heard that the equipment used to test home wasn't adequate to find all chemicals. She wants the EPA to redo the testing with more sensitive equipment, with such as clip-on badges they now use for outdoor air sampling. Those badges can detect butylene acrylate in the air at levels as low as 9 parts per billion. The EPA has considered doing more indoor testing, mostly to increase community confidence, the agency official said, but it concluded that it wouldn't be a good idea because testing would probably find chemicals from household sources rather than any lingering contamination from the derailment. Oh, really? The EPA says its extensive outdoor testing has confirmed there are no, quote, ongoing exposure pathways for contaminants of concerns in people's homes, end quote. Oh, I'm glad. Her voice needs a little work. It's hard to get that gravelly, to be honest with you, unless you have actually smoked 5 packs of Virginia Slims every day, which I have not. Uh According to a statement from EPA Region 5 Administrator Deborah Shore, Miller doesn't believe it. We've already been lied to so many times. Yeah, I'm with her. That episode really burned the trust bridge, said University of Kentucky's Hayes. They came back like they were told they could, and testing was done after the fact with poor equipment. In written responses to questions, the train owners has said no homeowners were notified about the changes in the screening levels or limitation of the handheld detectors, and that no homes were subsequently retested, as the instrument used for indoor air assessments achieved the detection limits below screening levels approved by Incident Command. Quote, "The instrumentation used by the train people were sufficiently sensitive to detect levels of butyl acrylate and vinyl chloride at levels that would pose adverse threat effects," said Nani, the company's senior vice president. Sure. Sure they were. David and Shanna Chick and their 2 grade school kids live about a quarter mile from where the train wrecked and caught fire. David, 32, has lived in East Palestine his whole life. They had their home tested when Norfolk Southern and the EPA offered the screening on February 10th, 2023. They were told that there was no problem, nothing was detected. CNN reviewed their air screening results. Shanna works from home. She said the smells and symptoms aren't as bad as they were in the beginning, but they still come and go. There's days when I go outside and I'm just walking to my garage and I can feel I'm having a hard time breathing, she says. She wants to believe the EPA's assurances that her family's out of harm's way, but her body's telling her something else. They're missing something, she said. David is an operation manager for Cremasource, a company that closed one of its East Palestine manufacturing plants, Cremafab, in 2023, laying off about 30 workers. The derailment and subsequent burn of thousands of pounds of vinyl chloride happened almost directly behind the Cremafab building. He said contractors hired by the railroad screened the building with one of the handheld devices, a ionization detector, or PI. Fry, you done have lost your doggone mind. What is going on here? He's like, yes, and they gave us the all clear and they said, okay, go back to work. You're fine, he said. Air screening results viewed reviewed by CNN showed that it was tested on February 11th, 2023, and nothing was detected. Uh, Workers went back on Monday, he said, but by Wednesday, they were getting rashes and feeling breathless. One person had a nosebleed. When they tried to bring workers back again the next week, it was the same thing all over again, he said. Eventually, the customers stopped placing orders for fear that their products would be contaminated, said Edwin Wang, David's boss, deciding to shut down the factory. David's has spent the last few months trying to get the factory packed up and closed. He said his eyes get irritated, his throat gets scratchy, and it's harder to breathe after spending time in the building. The EPA is testing the building for vapor intrusion or chemicals that might have migrated under the foundation of the building through contaminated soil. When he goes home, which is a bit further from the site, David says his symptoms ease. With a growing family, the Chicks wanted to move to a bigger home for more space, but the derailment sped up that timeline. Members of his extended family, which go back generations in East Palestine, are trying to get out. My grandma lives at the top of the hill. My brother lives there. My aunts and uncles all live here. We're all from the area. Everyone's trying to get out. As time passes, answers will be harder and harder to get. Chemicals will break down in the environment or be metabolized by the body, leaving no immediate trace of where they were or what they did. I think with all uncertainties about what's gone on here, that people who want to leave should be given that option and the federal government should pay for that. And the company should have to reimburse the federal government, said Stephen Lester, a science director for the Center of Health, Environment, and Justice, a nonprofit advocacy group started by victims of Love Canal, a neighborhood in New York where hundreds of people were harmed in the 1970s by dumping of toxic chemicals. Lester points out that there is precedence for doing this. For example, with the first responders on the 9/11 attacks, with families and soldiers who were stationed at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina exposed to toxic solvents in drinking water, and with Vietnam veterans exposed to Agent Orange. All of these places have made a decision about health problems these people have and have decided that science is incomplete, which it is. Lester said there is no way we can determine with all these uncertainties and a lack of testing whether the illnesses the people are having in East Palestine are caused by that burn. Without enough evidence, but with people sick, the government agreed to acknowledge that anyone who was in places like Love Canal and Camp Lejeune were probably exposed, and that if they had certain diseases after that, they should be compensated. They should get health care paid for by the government and be given an opportunity to leave, Lester said. Lonnie Miller agrees. She and her husband Dave recently bought another home about 20 minutes away in Latonia, Ohio, rather than return to their 21-year-old son to their home in East Palestine. Their East Palestine home has been on the market for more than 130 days. They've only had 2 showings, even though they've lowered the price 3 times. Her family took the $1,000 inconvenience check that Norfolk Southern paid to everyone who lived within a certain proximity of the derailment, she said, and accepted some reimbursement for their relocation expenses. But beyond that, she can't stomach the thought of taking the company's money. And she refuses to even participate in a program the railroad created to compensate residents for the lost value of their homes. Yes, apparently it was a town in, New York that they were just dumping all sorts of chemicals in the water. Uh, and then Squab Bob, thank you for donating. You guys are just making me write words tonight, which is awesome. And those went to hopefully some boys are getting ready to take showers with soap, which may or may never actually be the case. Samantha Shoe Lover. Oh, I'm sorry, that went to Tammy F., Samantha Shoe Lover, Graceful Klutz, Emma Lemry, and Crystal Love. Sorry, I can't, read and do names and write, because I'm a genius. Okay, let's see here. So, I know this was kind of a longer one, but, I feel like these poor people in East Palestine have never really gotten their story told, and yes, thank you. Eris, I'm not gonna read that out loud, but passively agree. He's only in my room for 5 seconds, and he moves hangers in. Hello, will call magic. So, yeah, I know it was a bit of a longer one, but I feel like the East Palestine people who are really affected in that have never really gotten a fair shake or enough time in there, and then now that I'm finding out all of the shenanigans, it's making me want to put on a push-up bra, and also, I know very little about the law. I could go Aaron Brockovich someone, damn it. Okay, let me find since that one was a bit we'll do a fun story to end since I do need to take Fry out, and then I will be redirecting you guys to Shizzy, uh, because we do a, after my show video or stream, having a brain fart here. So, thank you so much, Fry. He's like, "Fry, I am cute. Fry, don't be a dingus." So, for an interesting, last article, why Gen Z millennials are obsessed with bizarre, quote, unquote, "broccoli freckles," uh, trend. I have no idea what broccoli okay, you wanna look like Raggedy Ann? I am so confused. They're vegging out, faux real. New York Times, or Post, I don't wanna have to fine you for these puns, but I really am. I literally look crazy right now, admitted makeup taste master Paulina Reitman, a Gen Z New Yorker, in a TikTok tutorial entitled "Trying the Broccoli Freckle Trend." D do y'all remember when we used to use makeup to hide freckles? Have I remember that. Thank you, John, for gifting more memberships. John's just like, "I don't wanna know about broccoli freckles. This sounds ridiculous." And that went to AC's Wildflower, Mom of 10, Holly, CTYM169. So thank you all so much. And thank you, John. Let me write those down before I forget things because I can't remember anything. I'm just gonna use mom of 10 like my little get out of jail free card when people say, "Don't you think 6 is enough?" And I'm gonna say, "I know someone who has 10 kids." When my mom says anything, I'm just gonna say, "But there's people that have more kids than I do, I promise." Y'all, I have no idea what is wrong with humanity. Cosmetic connoisseurs are going green in the name of a buzzy beauty how-to. They are flocking to the nearest grocer's produce aisle to achieve a haute, albeit avant-garde style, fake freckles. I can't, y'all. We have obviously been just speed launched into the stupid dimension by the particle collider in Europe. That is just what has happened. I have no idea. In a clip or in the clip with more than 173,000 views, the fair-skinned brunette is seen using a floret of broccoli to dab dark flecks of makeup onto her cheeks in an attempt to feign the look of natural freckles. Quote, "I already had a piece of broccoli in my fridge, and I was like, quote, 'Let's try it,'" end quote, said Reitman as she rubbed her bronzer on the vegetable. The 20-something patted the excess product off the veggie and onto the back of her hand before applying the makeshift marks to her cheek and nose. And much to the diva's delight, the plant accomplished the preen. Quote, "Shut up," she exclaimed with glee while blending the dots into her foundation. "When summer comes around, are you kidding?" added Reitman, who claims the posh finishing product pleasantly shook her to the core. I this is the dumbest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. The ever organic hack is picking up steam among spotted wannabes of the fashionable faux freckles movement. It's a much healthier alternative to drugstore bought henna pens uh, that Twaka Larson, 26, from Alanya, Turkey, used in an attempt to jazz up her mane last year. Rather than transforming herself into a freckled belle, Larson confessedly looked like a green-hued Fiona of Shrek fame. And in November 2021, Australian content created Tilly Whitefield explained to the Post that she temporarily went blind after tattooing freckles across her face with a sewing needle and ink that she purchased online. Well, l I don't know that we need to be Sherlock to figure out what it is that went wrong there. Quote, "My skin is still healing, it will never be the same," said Whitfield. "It's permanently scarred." Maybe because you shouldn't use ink you bought off of Temu? The broccoli method, however, seems to be leaving good tastes in everyone's mouth so far, at least. Swedish model Kasaja Westberg, 33, scored over 46.2 million views in a demonstration of the hack. The buzz cut blonde even enjoyed a bite out of the what is wrong? No. Influence Sir, Christy Sarah left her husband slack-jawed after he spotted her dolling up with a hunk of the green stuff in a post that amassed 2.1 million clicks. And Christia Laverusk, a self-professed, quote, millennial mom with Gen Z style, has become obsessed with the broccoli-assisted primp. She even cheekily coined a nickname for the process, broccoli freckles or breckles. Oh god. Nope. Nope, that's it. I know I no longer I'm done. We have the professor I I need to be able to play the Professor Farnsworth, clip that says, "I no longer want to live on this planet." John, I'm not putting that up. Well, thank you all for joining me tonight. I am here every, weekday evening at 7 PM, except for Wednesday night and Friday night. Those are kind of my family nights. Um, and then I am every morning at 9 AM, I do about an hour too. So that's what we do. For about an hour, I go through articles. I generally don't read the article beforehand. I just read the headline and then we read it together. And it's generally nothing political per se, and generally nothing about the Mesopotamia for anyone that's new here. So I just like finding interesting legal-ish stories and weird kind of things going on because who'd have thought you could make freckles out of broccoli? Still seems like a weird way to get out of eating ranch, but okay. Have a wonderful evening. I am sending you guys over to Shizzy. I will be streaming with him for a little bit this evening. I think we are doing the Zachariah Anderson interview, or it might be something completely different. I am not quite sure, to be honest with you. Naturally blonde under the fake red that's under this wig. So, it is what it is. Thank you guys so much. Bye.